Hi friends, welcome to this latest episode of the Nationalist View. We have with us a very, very special guest, Dr. Lauren Amos. Dr. Lauren, thank you so much for joining the show. Dr. Lauren Amos, let me give a brief introduction and I will be giving a detailed bio of Dr. Amos in the description box of this video. And there will also be some links related to her work. So, Dr. Lauren Amos is a political scientist and a strategic consultant. She is associated with Begin Sadat Center for Strategic Studies at Bar-Ilan University in Tel Aviv. And her expertise is on, apart from other things, in geopolitics. Her major expertise is on India's foreign policy and defense policy, as well as the Indo-Pacific strategy. So we are going to talk about broadly, related to some of her recent writings. Dr. Lauren, my
Yeah.
first question to you is that, in your recent writings, you have argued that Pakistan is trying to position itself as a mediator in the West Asia crisis. But how credible can Islamabad really appear as a neutral mediator after recent reports now alleging that Iranian military aircraft were boosted inside Pakistan during the recent tensions? There was a CBS report which has not been denied by Pakistan. So, how
So
do you look at this?
let me just saying thank you again for hosting me, and I will frame Pakistan's correct diplomacy in West Asia, not as the rise of neutral peacemaker, but as a strategy of diplomacy. Usually, Pakistan is trying to convert vulnerability into relevance. It is economically fragile, internally straight, and export regional spillover, but precisely because of that is a strong initiative to present itself as a usual Washington, Tehran, Riyadh, Beijing, and wider Muslim world. So, if I will focus on your question, I will be cautious here. Unless these reports are officially confirmed, independently verified, I will not build the entire analysis on them. But analytically, even the perception of such activity matters because mediation depends not only on actual neutrality, but also as a perceived neutrality. Pakistan problem is that is not natural mediator in the classic Omani or Qatari sense. It is not insulated, wealthy district, and Eastern neutrally trust across all sides. Its relevance comes from a different set of assets: geography, military capability, nuclear status, Islamic legitimacy, access to Iran, and access to Washington. That makes Pakistan useful, but not neutral, necessarily neutral. So, if Iranian aircraft were indeed hosted or facilitated through Pakistani territory, that would stretch Israeli Gulf and possibly American doubts about Islamabad's imperative, but it will not necessarily eliminate Pakistan's utility in crisis diplomacy. States often use imperfect channels because they are available, not because they are morality or diplomacy pure.
So, how do you see, Pakistan's growing proximity with Riyadh, where that is Saudi Arabia, and because of this, the relationship between Pakistan and UAE has nosedived, and also, while it is trying to engage with Iran, Saudi Arabia, China, Turkey, and the United States also simultaneously. Now, given its deep defense ties with Saudi Arabia and growing proximity with Saudi Arabia, so there is reportedly an unease within parts of the Gulf over Islamabad's this particular kind of positioning. So we have talked about that Pakistan is not a neutral mediator, though it is
Mhm.
trying to project itself as such. But now let's talk about the credibility.
Yeah.
So
So
how do you see Pakistan's growing proximity with Saudi Arabia, which is causing a great unease to many other countries in the Gulf, in the Middle East, in the West Asia.
So Pakistan today is trying simultaneously engage Iran, Saudi Arabia. The UAE, it's not working for her. China, Turkey, and the United States. But given its deep defense ties, as you say, with Rida reported within parts of the Gulf over Islamabad's recent posting, can Pakistan really do it? So it's a deep ties with Saudi Arabia are not marginal. Pakistan has long-standing security relations with Rida, and the 2025 Saudi-Pakistan Strategic Mutual Defense Agreement that actually no one saw this agreement. It's all the talks about it. Turn a symbolic partnership into much more institutional security commitment. That makes difficult for Tehran to see Pakistan as a fully imperial. At the same time, Pakistan cannot afford a confrontation with Iran because of the shared Baluchistan border, security and sensitive, and the risk of spillover into Pakistan's own fragile domestic environment. So this is why Pakistan's diplomacy is best understood as a calibrated balancing. Islamabad must resource Saudi Arabia and the Gulf without provoking Iran. It must prevent channels to Tehran without alerting Washington. And it must see China without appearing merely a Chinese proxy. So the diplomat described Pakistan's recent activism as a legitimacy without leverage. Islamabad has diplomacy visibility, but it's lack in hard leverage and the board constant required as a decisive mediation process.
No, it is quite visible that instead of the uh, elected representatives, or instead of the what you call, the Prime Minister of Pakistan, it is actually the military establishment, and led by General Asim Munir, or Field Marshal Asim Munir. So they appear to be playing a central role in this whole mediation process. Now, if we look at this increasingly, military-driven initiative, so what implications it has for the regional stability? Because now it seems that even the foreign policy of Pakistan is now increasingly military-driven, or actually driven by Field Marshal Asim Munir.
So, from my point of view, Cinder operation is the start of this situation, of the current situation. Pakistan foreign policy has always had a strong military imprint, especially on India, Afghanistan, and United States, China, and a nuclear policy. What we are seeing now is not entirely new. As I mentioned, I think we can see in Sindoor operation as a very good start. General Asim Munir is a central because he is represented as the part of the Pakistani state, and the external actors often take more seriously. The military establishment in Pakistan, the army, is not only defense institution; it is a political actor, a strategic planner, and often the real coalition custodian of external security relationship. This has advantages and risks. The advantage is speed. Military channels can sometimes move faster than civilian diplomacy, especially with Washington. We saw that after Sindoor operation, the meeting with Munir and Trump in Washington, Beijing, Riyadh, and Tehran, they can also signal seriousness, but the risks are significant. Military-driven diplomacy trend to be transactional, personalized, and security kinetic. It may produce short-term tactical flexibility, but it weakens institutional credibility over time. Your own I in my papers, in my research, I'm argue that Pakistan diplomacy often works through military channels, personal network, and informal access rather than through stable institutional standing. So for regional stability, it means that Pakistan may be effective at opening the channels, but you need to keep up. You need to stay stable with this channel.
So now, if we look at from the Israel's perspective, how does Israel look at Pakistan today? Does Tel Aviv see Islamabad as merely another Muslim majority state offering rhetorical support for Palestine, or as a potentially more serious strategic challenge because of its military capabilities, nuclear status, and growing closeness with China and Turkey?
So in our perspective, there is not a lot of change in how we see Pakistan than before. Um, if Israel was on the table, I maybe I would say something else, but this is not the reality. For us, Pakistan is still is a nuclear state, a Muslim nuclear state, yeah, and it's unstable, and they don't want relationship with us, and we have a partnership with India, so there is not a lot of. We don't see Pakistan in a different way. We don't see how the leverage of Pakistan. We can see there is an actor right now that are want to gain from the momentum. They want to use the momentum for to build relation to build to keep the relationship with Turkey, with Saudi Arabia. But if even if I don't want, there is a Pakistan momentum right now. But I'm always saying, it's Pakistan. It's unstable state. We don't know what will happen. For the short term, yeah, okay, Pakistan earned the momentum. But in the longer term, I really don't know. I'm not convinced that Pakistan is here to stay.
So now,
For us, the real concern is again the nuclear weapon and the relationship with Iran, the connection with China, and we don't know what will happen with that.
yeah, so no, if you look at basically because your PhD thesis has been on India's foreign policy, so I want basically I think yours would be a neutral perspective because probably a lot of perspectives which will be coming from India in the current situation are bound to
Yeah.
have some kind of a bias. So it'll be good to have your perspective on this thing and your assessment. How should India assess or how should India interpret Pakistan's growing diplomatic activity in West Asia? Does it represent a temporary tactical opening for Islamabad? Or do we see a possibility of a more serious geopolitical shift that New Delhi must pay attention?
Um, I wonder if I will surprise you with my answer right now. Please tell me, okay? I think India should not overkit, but it should not dismiss this either. Pakistan's current visibility is partly tactical. It reflects moment in which Islamabad found a diplomatic opening because other actors were concerned. India, by contrast, has larger stakes with West Asia, Israel, Iran and the Gulf, and the United States, energy security, maritime routes, diaspora welfare, and connectivity. That makes New Delhi more important structurally, but also more cautious operationally. This is a paradox. India is a more capable power, but Pakistan may sometimes appear more agile because it carries fewer systematic responsibilities. Uh, I'm trying to frame that Pakistan is exploiting a window in which India's size and long-term interest impose cautions, while Pakistan's relative weakness allows tactical movement. New Delhi, they are working in the in strategic level, in the deeper connection, as we saw in the last visit of Modi in UAE just last Friday. defense agreement, and last February with Israel. So, it's much more strategic and much more important in this arena than Pakistan. So I think India response should not be compete with Pakistan's performatively. It should stress its own West Asia architecture, deeper Gulf engagement, quieter Iran channels, stronger maritime security cooperation, and a more cogent communication strategy, explaining India's role as a stabilizing power, to work with UAE and Israel on IMEC. IMEC will be the great answer for that.
So, my last question, Lauren, is that finally, do you think Pakistan can convert this current diplomatic visibility into long-term strategic influence, or will its economic troubles, internal instability, and credibility concerns ultimately limit its role?
So, as I said before, no, the short answer, no, I don't think. But Pakistan can generate tactical relevance. It can host a meeting, transmit a message, offer channels, present itself as a useful multi-part actor. But again, in the long term, influence requires more access. It requires economic resilience, institutional credibility, political stability, economic stability, and trust. Actors with rival camps. Pakistan is weak on all these four or five things that I mentioned. The key problem is that Pakistan diplomacy is operating from a position of vulnerability. It depends on IMF frameworks, Gulf financial support, Chinese backing. No one says something about the Chinese, the Chinese rule in Pakistan, and what's going on, under the table with the Chinese, because I don't see how Pakistan doing things like that, the mediation, without China approval or some movements. I don't know, if in the same room, but under the table. So in my answer, Pakistan can remain relevant for in the short term, in the crisis moment, but because the reality is that Trump said that yesterday want to go to a war. So where is Pakistan? And even if Iran and the US will stop the war right now, I don't see how Pakistan is the winning from this situation, because US and Iran, they have their own problem. Pakistan is not relevant for that issue. So if you will tell me, okay, the Iranian will go to Pakistan, and Pakistan, leave the nuclear weapon, and want normalization with Israel, and stabilization, and want peace with India, I will say, okay, I'm quitting my job, and I will not go to interview with you anymore.
So thank you, Lauren, for joining the show and decoding all these complex issues. Always welcome on the show, and we hope to host you back soon again. And thank you, viewers, for watching. And as I mentioned earlier, I will be sharing the detailed bio of Dr. Lauren Amos as well as the links which through which you can track her work also. So thank you once again.
Thank you. Thank you, my dear friend.